Good evening, folks. And according to J.J. Abrams, The Last Jedi did not derail The Force Awakens plans. Now, this implies that Episode 7 actually had some plans, and Abrams planned this stuff out. So he planned out 7, 8, and 9 to some degree, which makes sense. But how can Episode 8 have not interfered? So much weird stuff just got thrown out the door, which implies that he had other plans that just did not touch that, which sounds like that the stories in a trilogy are episodic, not continuous. They're not part of a series. It's just, they can just keep making episodes and call it whatever they like. It's no longer a trilogy. Anyway, let's actually listen to that interview.
The story that we're telling, the story that we started to conceive when we did Force Awakens, was allowed to continue. The episode 8 didn't really derail anything that we were thinking about. But I will say that the fun of this movie is that these characters are all together on this adventure as a group. And that's the thing that I was most excited about to see.
Okay, so he's saying it didn't derail for reasons he's not telling us. But this sort of contradicts previous stories that were reported throughout the years. For example, one by Daisy Ridley, the main character of the trilogy, said this. This was back in March 2018. So, I know JJ wrote Episode 7 as well as drafts for 8 and 9. Then Rian Johnson arrived and wrote The Last Jedi entirely. I believe there was some sort of general consensus on the main lines of the trilogy, but apart from that, every director writes and realizes his film in his own way. Rian Johnson and J.J. Abrams met to discuss all of this, although Episode 8 is still his very own work. I believe Rian didn't keep anything from the first draft of Episode 8. Now, this is just her opinion, of course. We don't know if she actually saw any of these drafts, but it would make sense. You've got hundreds of millions, if not billions of bucks riding on the most popular movie franchise ever. And, well, until Marvel, of course. And you should plan some of it out. You probably should know what you're doing. Further evidence, we have Simon Pegg from the Happy, Sad, Confused podcast. He says, I know what JJ kind of intended, or at least was being chucked around. I think that's kind of been undone slightly by the last one. There was some talk of a relevant lineage for her. That's relation to Rey's parents. So it's getting a bit strange on what is going on in J.J. Abrams' mind. I think he's just being diplomatic. He's just trying to be positive and just explain things as, oh yeah, no, don't worry, everything's going to be great. Ryan is great. The movie was great. It was going to be great too. Everything's going to work out. But here's what he also had to say. This is this year in April. It was a completely unknown scenario. I had some gut instincts about where this story would have gone, but without getting in the weeds on Episode 8, that was a story that Ryan wrote and was telling based on 7 before we met. So this is before he even met that Rian Johnson. Rian Johnson was already busy writing. And then he just let him keep writing, apparently. So he was taking the thing in another direction, which is kind of strange. So that means that, Ryan was doing his own thing. And according to Daisy Ridley, then they met, they talked about stuff. And they just said, okay, yeah, I guess just do what you want. So we also, well, of course, he threw out the entire thing, as Daisy Ridley also expressed. So we also had to respond to Episode 8. So our movie was not just following what we had started, it was following what we had started and that had been advanced by someone else. Well, no duh. It's just like saying, well, Chapter 3 comes after Chapter 2, even though someone else wrote Chapter 2. It's like, yeah, we understand continuity. We understand counting. Thank you, JJ. So there was that. And finally, is resolving 9 movies. Really? Wow. I didn't know that. Okay. It's a hell of an authority you've got there. It's a hell of a responsibility to write up a ending, not only to a trilogy, but to 2 other trilogies. That's, geez. While there are some threads of larger ideas and some big picture things that had been conceived decades ago, and a lot of ideas that Lawrence Kasdan and I had when we were doing Episode 7, the lack of absolute inevitability The lack of a complete structure for this thing, given the way it was being run, was an enormous challenge. Now, this is kind of silly. This is getting kind of weird. All he had to do is say, you know what? Ryan made an excellent movie. It was really interesting, very different than what I would have done. But you know what? I think we've got this down. We figured it out. I think we can connect 7, 8, and 9 all together, despite it being so revolutionary. And it's positive on top of positive. All he said was, no, it's fine. No, we're going to be good. It's great. It's going to be a lot of fun. You have to address that, hey, not everyone liked this. Hey, there might be a few problems with it, too. No movie's perfect. Yeah, that'd be good, too. But no, he didn't say that. He just says, yeah, it's going to be great. It's going to be a great adventure. Everyone's together. Lots of fun. So what's going to happen is they're going to have to retcon Daisy Ridley's parents, or Rey's parents, because there's going to be no explanation for what she can do. And if they don't do that, then they have to retcon the Force, because the Force is now some sort of capricious force of nature thing that managed to cloud Kylo's mind as well as Rey's mind into figuring out who their parents were, and that the dark side of the Force was lying to Rey in that weird mirror thing. So that would be like one of the major retcons. So maybe he was planning that. Probably not, of course. But there's all these other things. Like, you know that scene with we saw in the news trailer with all the Star Destroyers just lined up? It's like, okay, X-Wings have hyperdrives. You got one X-Wing per Star Destroyer. Boom. Your fleet is gone. One X-Wing per Star Destroyer. Lightspeed ram, toast. They have to explain why they can't do that. They have to at least address it. Say, hey, why don't we just Lightspeed ram that thing? No, we can't do that. We need you, man, or whatever. They got shields that protect against that. Okay, great. What they also have to address is the Lightspeed tracking. You know how we had Lightspeed tracking? It worked in the first 10 minutes of the movie. And then when John Boyega goes off with Finn and Rose, and like, oh, nope, they just escaped. No one cares. No one cares. They can just do that. No problem. The Millennium Falcon can come in and out of hyperspace within the middle of a battle. No one cares. Can't track them. Not a big deal. So they have to get into the details of why Lightspeed tracking doesn't work. And of course, the big one to the Force that we saw was how Force Ghosts can now summon lightning and interact with the physical world. Are there going to be Force Ghost style combat? Is it going to just blow away stuff? Like, what's going on here? So there has to be a lot of retconning for this story even to get off the ground, let alone be worthwhile. There are so many holes in Episode 8 that for J.J. Abrams to say that is, at least in the way he did, is, I wouldn't say disingenuous, but he's just skirting so many problems that are going to prevent people from even watching this. And to say that he wants to tie in the entire Star Wars movie franchise and sum it up in Episode 9 is pretty tall. That's a tall order for anyone. And what we know from writing, at least from Johnson and Abrams, is they are not the ones to do it. Anyway, guys, thanks for listening. Have yourself a great evening.